What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to take a look at two different things that we kind of learned from PlayStation today. So, I did a video earlier today on Astro, if you guys want to check that out in terms of, the specific sales. But single player was a big talking point, right? And we really got two things. So, one of the things was the whole, okay, from now till March, you're not getting any, single player games. Now, I guess that could be spun as a pretty big negative, I guess, if you want it to. I mean, between now and March, you also have an entire month, second half of December, first half of January, where there's nothing at all. So it's okay, you lose a month because no game comes out. And then, there's other games to fill my schedule. I don't know about you guys, but it's not that big of a deal. And, whether you're saying first party, third party, second party, whatever, we did just have Astro. We did have Until Dawn. That game did come out, even if it's a remake. And we also had Silent Hill, which wasn't from them, but it was a PlayStation exclusive, right? So, okay, you had single-player games just these last couple months. I don't really see that as a big deal. Then they say that pretty much every year going forward, there's going to be one. There's going to be at least one single-player game. And, you can think, and I mean, hopefully, 2025, you think of the Ghost of Yotes and Death Stranding, right? Those games seem pretty locked in. Hopefully. I think Death Stranding 2 is very locked in. I think Ghost of Yote, they would really want it to come out next year, and that's a game that I would start to wonder, how Spider-Man kind of showed a lot of signs of PlayStation rushing them. I really kind of get a bad feeling. I think the end product will still be really, really good, but I do get the feeling that PlayStation wants Ghost of Yote out next year, and maybe Sucker Punch wants it further. That's just, my own speculation. But anyway, that's good to hear, right? Kind of doubling down on single-player games, or maybe reassuring us, although that's the next point I want to talk about, reassuring us that single-player games are still coming. Now, the biggest thing was really actually, talking about single player versus live service. And they said something pretty interesting. So for live service, they talked a little bit about Concord, and, you probably saw the stuff going around online. Basically, they want more checks and balances, right? They want people playing the game, play testing it more, and they just want to be able to find out if it's good or bad earlier, right, than what they did with Concord. And that was a big blunder. It was, Microsoft has done it too, right? When a game leaks through, and it's I mean, Redfall was really Microsoft's example of that, and Concord is PlayStation. How you go through and have playtests, have executives looking at these things. And I mean, that's what I just don't understand, right? It's maybe you just have to be there. But hearing okay, we want more checks in place, right? Maybe every couple months this thing happens that we're not letting it get by this point in the state that a Concord was in, right? We are going to catch it earlier. And you like to hear it. I mean, I think that's just a business savvy thing. You want to be able to catch those things. But how did those things not already exist? How did a thing like Concord or Redfall even happen in the first place, right? Because people did play it. These executives, the Herman Holsts of the world and stuff, don't they fly around and just check out games as a pretty okay sizable part of their job? Not their whole thing, but they go around to first party, third party, people not even associated with them, and they just look at their games and kind of have those conversations. How do you let that go by? So, that's just, again, something that I think of, but that's not necessarily what they said. But they did say something rather interesting when it came to single player. They said that those were the higher possibilities of being hits, and that it really did sound to me almost like doubling down. See, I like it. I really, really like what I saw with that, because, there's an interesting blend that they say in that kind of, I don't know if it's press release or more an investor call, but the idea is single player games have the chance to break out. Okay, they have high chances of breaking out because we're good at them, because we do them often, right? We know what we're doing. Live service, we still need to do. We need that reoccurring income, right? But we're not as good with it, and we need, again, these proper checks and balances, and we need to get better at it overall, but we still need that. It's kind of what I wanted to hear, because it, again, as we've talked about so many times really with PlayStation, it would be foolish to think that they're just going to pull out entirely of live service, right? They've pulled out a little, because you have the Spider-Mans of the world being canceled, Last of Us, there's the rumors of Twisted Metal, whatever. They've had a couple games being canceled, and they wanted, I mean, even if you just go by Jim Ryan a few years ago, right? They wanted, at this point, there should have been like 6, 7 live service games out, and there's like, what, 2, 1? And Helldivers, I don't know if they expected it to do what it did, but it kind of just like landed on their lap and just, did all of this revenue, and that's great for them, but it's like, okay, well, you probably do want a few more of them, but you got to be careful, and a thing like today is something you like to hear. You got to have your priorities straight. I get the need to have reoccurring income, right? I think that's something I've really understood more and more as time has gone on. When it first started, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't even believe PlayStation was trying it in the first place. You got to try. You got to try, and you have to have a couple of them. Everybody else is doing it. It is a big money maker, and it can allow you to take risks in other places. It can also just pad you a little bit, right? Like if something goes wrong, to have a couple games that are just constantly doing well for you is good to have, right? And not that, okay, well, we have to wait 4 years, the game comes out, it does really well for a year, and then we have nothing from it, right? Like I get the desire to have a blend, but you do have to know what you're good at, and they're good at single player, and to hear them literally say that, right? Like that is the breakout territory. That is an area that we know we can invest in. We have to make games like it, and they have a higher possibility versus live service of breaking out and being something big. I mean, like, you don't get the Last of Us's of the world by doing it as a live service thing, right? You don't get the Uncharted's of the world even going back further, right? So, you have to try both. I think the priority should always still be on single player, and not maybe for everybody. By the way, and this is also a thing that I've kind of changed, I'm not even saying every publisher or every developer. It's kind of just what they're good at and what they've built themselves to be, right? Like Bungie is known for something, Sony is known for something. Like you got to do what I think you're meant to do, or what you kind of built yourself up as. People don't like seismic shifts, right? When PlayStation does one thing extremely well for decades and they hard pivot, it's not going to work. And it actually has proven to not work, because we should have had more live service games. They were canceled. They're not working. You had 1 or 2 maybe that worked, and that's kind of it, right? You need more, sure, but you also can't completely swap your stream. Remember when it was 50-50 or even like 70-30? I think Jim Ryan did charts where, over the next 5 years, it's actually more live service than it is single player. Cannot be like that. I don't even think it should be 50-50. I get the need for like trying multiple things, because you really only need a couple of them to hit. You don't need all of them to hit, right? And I guess that's the thing. Like if Helldivers hits, Concord maybe doesn't have to, but I mean, well, it kind of did, because like the studio's gone, right? Like they shut down the studio. There are still consequences for games not working, even if it's just one game that doesn't work, and even if it was offset by a Helldivers that did like way, way, way better than they thought, right? It's still not good enough, because because they spent a lot of money on Concord and it completely failed. So that's something to, I guess, keep in mind. But I like it. I like it a lot. I like the approach to single player. That's got to be where it's at. You can have some live service, but I think the focus needs to be on single player, and we heard that today. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.